Jack, you're on mute. You're going to have to unmute and start over.
Anyway, today we're going to go through the section here. Okay. And the word ki is thrown around in Aikido, although I don't know that a lot of people give a lot of thought to what ki is. Might be whatever. And so this is a discussion. This is not a discussion because nobody is responding, but it's a layout of what Shiva himself maybe thought of as ki. And it's very complex. It's almost like reading a technical manual. And so I thought we'd go through that as part of it today. It just depends on the time. Looking at that, so we are just about ready to go. And this is a biography of the founder written by his son, Kishomari, who, upon his father's death, assumed the title of Doshin, leader of the way. Do's way, Lord of the way, leader of the way. I've heard it pronounced and translated in different ways. Was Shiva the Doshin? He was Osensei. Right? I mean, I guess he could have called himself Doshin. There are other titles. But he was called Osensei. Sensei himself is the owner of the title of Osensei. And one thing that Mariani Sensei told me was that oftentimes, the characters are the same, but it's usually read Dai Sensei or Dai are the same character. And then you put that in front of Sensei, Dai Sensei. Great, great, great teacher, but Osensei, changing the reading that from Dai to O, kind of softened it, gave him to some degree a more human Dai Sensei, O Sensei, a little more of a human touch. Okay? And one of the things that maybe people don't realize, I think he was so advanced, it was somewhat painful for him. He had great passion, obviously, so that's probably what, I mean, didn't mean he didn't feel because of what was going on. That Aikido was so endless, and me, including myself in that, touched so little of it because we touched so little of ourselves. We're satisfied with it. It's got on all levels benefit, but sometimes it's useful to conjecture. And that's about all I can do personally. What he was like. A part of it might have felt about the path of Aikido. Still going. Okay. Pandemic hasn't wiped us out yet, nor will it. But the subject of ki, read about it. Then there's Osensei's usage, codification of what he meant. This section is sort of that. And it's a couple pages long, so I thought I'd go through it, maybe highlight a little bit of my own insights. I did that a couple of weeks ago, again with the Memoirs of the Master. Okay, so I thought we'd do that today. Okay, we're going to start. Let's start at the very beginning. And as much as this is a book about Osensei, what I'm reading is a quotation from him about ki. In fact, Let's go. Through practicing Budo, I trained my body. As I learned its deeper secrets, I realized that at the same time, I had also learned a greater truth. Through training in Budo, I came to understand the essence of the universe. Wow. And notice he starts with body in its deepest secrets. He's not talking about theory, per se, he's talking about direct experience. And that's a good point. I understood that human beings, us, okay, need to harmonize their minds, their bodies, and the key that connects and unifies these two. So we talk about Aikido sometimes as mind, body, and the human. And one thing you just said is that that's accomplished through ki. Now, ki is a word that is a great part of Japanese culture. In fact, I read Sadaharu O's autobiography, his journey through baseball, which was influenced by Ueshiba quite a bit. And he said ki can be a dangerous word. And, qualified that, what's dangerous about ki? Well, you put something in front of ki. Ki brings it into existence. And for example, he used the term bio in front of ki, creates sickness. But you put gen in front of ki, it's health. And Osensei called his part ki, harmonizing ki, the way of harmonizing ki. In short, ki no yo. That is something that is really the subject of this thing I'm reading, ki no yo. And it's translated as the exalted use of ki. Now, he kind of hints earlier. There's mind, there's body. He admits to being pretty much body, starting with Buddha. And through his training with the body, unifying body and mind, he came to understand, quote unquote, the universe. So he was kind of a scientist, not just a martial artist, kind of an Einstein in his own way. And instead of algorithms and mathematics, he used martial principles. In short, ki no myo, the exalted use of ki, allows individuals to harmonize their own body and mind, as well as coming into harmony with the greater universe. Wow. Okay? So, in some sense, when your mind and your body go into balance, some aspects of ki come into being. Well, focus, balance. Those are words. Experience. Those words inspire. But he insists that you can come into balance and harmony with the greater universe. That which is called Aikido has become one with the universe. Okay? If one fails to enact ki no myo, poor physical and mental health may result. Eventually, the world and even the universe fall out of order. We're kind of running into that just with the situation with the environment. We're also running into that situation nationally with the political systems. You have a person who is already an indictment for 2 issues and will be under indictment probably for a couple of running for the presidency and that is party covering for him. Unable to speak their voice. And whether you agree with that or not, is it political? Yeah, it's a president. On the other hand, any of us do put him through. We'd be locked up. So it's complex. But the greater spirit key of things is right now not going well. That's one of the reasons that we examine this. And I'll repeat that if one fails to enact keen yoga, poor physical and mental health may result. Eventually, the world and even the universe fall out of order. And we're seeing that with the climate crisis. People are just, now that it's extreme, the heat, extreme weather is coming up. People are showing the right about it, but it's been going on for a long time. So, what can we do about it? Let's continue. For this reason, both world order and world peace crucially rely on the harmony between key, mind, and body on the one hand, and on the other hand, the movements of the greater universe. Yeah. In other words, it's connection to some degree. The universe kind of has an order with itself, balance. And we are kind of charged here with on this world, unfolding things along that balance. And we do that through Ki no Yo. That's the whole purpose of Aikido. And obviously, the world is falling into a certain amount of disorder that seems to be intensified. So let's continue. Aikido is a path to truth, and Aikido training should be understood to have the goal of finding the truth. Wow. In the discipline of Aikido, when you train hard, practice wisely, and analyze what you are doing, Kami Wasa will arrive. Divine technique. Kami Wasa. A little bit of a shift from what he was saying into that. We'll keep going. In Aikido, when one trains in the following manner, one's body will absorb the power of unchanging truth. So now he's defining truth. He's saying unchanging, which means in some way it's dark. If you look at the world, it's not going very well. Because obviously we have departed from, quote unquote, the unchanging truth. Whatever that is. Okay. So there's 3 things. Train to harmonize one's mind with the movements of the universe. Mr. Einstein, for example, he created his own physics to explain space-time, matter, energy through his theory of relativity, both general and special. It's not to say we have to go out there and try to do that, but on the other hand, the universe is a study. Okay? Trained to harmonize one's body with the movements of the universe. Remember, he started out talking about training the body. But here, it's the mind, number one, body, two. So an activity, Aikido idea, that allows one. Now we go to three. Train to harmonize the key that connects mind and body with the movements of the universe. So we have a mind, a body. They both potentially can follow the movement of the universe. They do. And then there's the key that unifies mind and body also into the universe. 1, 2, and 3. Only those who are able to train in these three ways at the same time, not as a theory, but in the dojo and in their daily life, can be called practitioners of the body. Wow. That disqualifies most of us. It's more than just reading about the philosophy or just doing it. So those are important. Somehow integrate, it says at the same time, unity, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The human body is Gitai Shinkun, Japanese term, which is defined as appearing to be body. In actuality, it is. It's translated as soul. Created by the universe, absorbing celestial energy, harmonizing with the universe, it learns to follow the path of life. Training the body first requires that one be and prepare both mind and soul thoroughly. Next, one must polish or cleanse and purify the vitality of Nen, N-E-N. This is a big word, actually, if you research some of Osensei's teachings. And it's translated here as sense, feeling, even thought. An inclusive beingness, consciousness. And most of them were occupied with the busyness of the world of what we call I. Which to some degree takes what man is and kind of twists it and everything. So returning kind of, it's talking about cleansing, going back to men as a vitalness, type of aliveness, force, energy. So along with ki, ki no myoyo is also the term yin. It is essential again that the Wada training technique be in harmony with the truth of the universe. And for this reason, one's feeling or yin, feeling, sense, yin, must be correct. To link the yin to one's contracted individual ego would be a divergence from the right path of training. It would be a perversion of the way. That's pretty strong. Now you can see here, he himself held himself to a pretty high standard, physical, mental, moral, spiritual. And he lays it out here. Such a perversion is opposed to the truth of the universe and brings adversity and destruction to the one who practices it. And we're not just looking at individuals, but nations now. Men must not be bound up with one's immediate situation, whether that situation will result in victory or defeat. Rather, it finds its roots and grows from the proper connection of one's own key, the key of the universe. At this level, then gives rise to more than what you might call natural powers or abilities. Osensei was Osensei. He could do things that a lot of people couldn't. He dodged bullets. He would do the thing with a stick and people would push on it and couldn't be moved. Sada Haguro in his biography visits Osensei along with his batting coach, who was a student of Osensei. And the batting coach was a major league hitter. And Osensei holds a token and asks, not oh, because they were afraid, oh, might get hurt. There's a lot of powerful energy in that. So the batting coach hits with a baseball bat. It's the boken Osensei is holding. And the way that Mr. O describes it, there's no gear, there's no movement. Full power, baseball swing from a professional hitter. And Mr. O doesn't try to understand it or explain it. He just says, that's a master demonstrating extension. But not the norm. Again, the Osensei, had a close relationship with Osensei, actually. Other teachers are rather Fraser and the Osensei would go to Osensei, I want to be your right. And the answer of Sensei is, that's funny, nobody else seems to. Okay. But the other thing he told me about Sensei is so easy. But I can't give it to you. So easy. So he's describing stuff that, from his standpoint, having trained, kind of whittled down, constructed his own sense of who he was with a purpose mission, which was connected to the larger schematic of the universe. So it's easy. There's no force involved. On the other hand, I can't give that to you. That's your journey. So, I think he thought of Aikido potentially, not just as training in the future. Undertaking that journey to find your own mission, purpose. Yeah. So I'll repeat, yen must not be bound up with the immediate situation, whether that situation result in victory or defeat. Whether it finds its roots and grows from the proper connection, one's own key to the key of the universe. this level and gives rise to more than natural. As a result, one has the insight to perceive clearly the slightest movement of one's opponent. Such is the state of Japanese term, Meikyo Shisu, a clear mind reflecting like calm waters. As one stands at the center of the universe, whether persons or things are outside that center can be clearly observed. There's a balance to things, a balance to the universe, this position with itself through what he's talking about, ideally. Any one of us can stand position at that center, as that center. In doing that, you'll kind of be pretty easy to see where things are off, if they're off. Okay. Here is the essential truth about, and this is a Japanese long expression, which he translates as winning without fighting. Your position in the center of the universe as that center. There's no fight. Getting to that position, that's the journey, isn't it? If you wish to apply Ki no Yoga, Exalted, from the foundation of this name, okay? Be aware that the left side of the body will be the basis for the martial, but the right side will offer an opening for connection to the key of the universe. When the links between left and right are complete, then one's movements become totally free. You're liberated. You're free. You're free from, or we're free ideally from the conflicts come from identifying with and as lesser things. So Aikido is a journey to that freedom, that liberation. As you enter the domain of unrestricted movement, agility becomes effortless. You can alter your posture and movements in any way you wish with total control. Wow. And the expression comes, I thought I could sort of do that, but he's sort of defining, you know, in starker terms. The right side will generate power, while the left supports it. Otherwise put, the left side protects the right side as it gives rise to Wada. And that, for me, you know, that's useful to find out he thought that way. I don't identify very well. Maybe I will at some point. So I just personally left, right, left, yeah. I know, for example, in basketball, if you do this right-handed, you go right all the time, you're limited. You have to be able to do things with your left. But you have to be right or not. People are not usually ambidextrous. The right is your strong side. The left complements it enough that you cannot be contained just with the right. And so, you know, he's really talking about one side protects the side that draws the key in and that stuff. And to be honest with you, I don't identify very well with that. Maybe someday I will. Okay. Keeping in mind the natural rule of motion I just described, In other words, he's saying he's revealing a pretty big truth there, which, to be honest with you, I don't understand. I would talk to Osensei sometimes about something, I don't understand it. Or I'd say, I don't understand it. Yeah, not at what Kojima Sensei was the same thing. I don't understand it. Yeah. So part of training is I don't understand it. It's a wall. Keep going. Okay. Remember that one's movements may turn and revolve with complete freedom, adapting to momentary changes in the situation. The left side can generate infinite amounts of ki. Since the right side opens itself to connections with ki, it can absorb the ki generated from both. Once, in the use of the term hide furi, then the left will control all that concerns life and death, and the right can administer the finishing blow. And it defines hide furi as a clock, which is used for ceremonial purposes to dispel evil spirits. What are evil spirits? Just energies that kind of keep us tied to lessen who we are. And and therefore we create the world out there by our actions and choices. We lessen the world. And so, purification, ritual is tied to his understanding of Shinto. This is the part that I really like. Okay? Yeah, we're moving along. Ki no Ryoyo is the mother of subtle alterations in the breath. And I asked Linda Holloway Sensei, does she have the original Japanese? Subtle alterations in the breath. Here is the origin of the love inherent in you. So whatever it is, it's very important. As one unifies body and mind through ki no yo. Remember earlier he said you unify body and mind through ki. But now he's saying, and he introduces this his term for ki at his level. Unify body and mind through the ki no yo. It amplifies one's ki. And once the link is made, this ki becomes part of the universe. Her ki and the ki of the universe unite. So there's a limited number of things I can do. I mean, ideally, supposing I ever get this really, the universe becomes kind of like a protective ally. So when the Osensei, because he trained with a lot of the really top direct students of which at Hopi Dojo. And he says, "What do your Aikido?" And the Osensei's response again was, "That's funny, nobody else does. They want to do their Aikido, from the style. It's popular. But to be able to do what you just described here as his Aikido, bit of a difference. And sometimes we get hypnotized because, some of those students, and, some existing students, along the lineage from that, they're pretty impressive. Okay? But when you're talking about Osensei, you're talking about the original prototype. And so far, there's only one of those right now. And that was him. At the same time, the subtle change in breathing penetrates the body deeply. And in this way, energizes the functions of the body. So on top of everything else, it's healthy. It gives you a certain vitality, an energy, a purpose. And it's connected to love, a state of living. The change in breathing, even without one's conscious intent, acts so as to enable infinite movements in any form whatsoever. The organs of the body begin to generate heat, light, and power. Furthermore, when this heat, light, and power come together, one's body begins to move as the mind dictates. Again, he's kind of detailing the process of mind and body connecting through ki no myo yo. And he's adding in your subtle changes in the breath. He's kind of leaving the roadmap. And breath is different than breathing. Abe Sensei came by in the 90s and taught a couple of classes for us at our old location in Japan. And he was a calligrapher. And the way that he put it is kind of when you put the brush to the paper, if you go like that, you tear the paper. So motion is connected to a subtle change in the breathing. And I also read in an interview with him that he said that his major, he was a calligrapher, so, but that is, or one of his major breath practices was to chant the Norito with the same breath changes. Osensei. I remember, I guess it was probably about 1974. Okay. Osawa Sensei from Homewood, Japan, older Osawa, came through and he brought a video, an NHK documentary, which is now available on YouTube, of Osensei in Iwama. And the documentary had Osensei chanting. And he bought this, and I was listening to it. And what was really interesting there was that Abe Sensei mentioned this. I read this much later, but I recognized the breath changes. Kizuchi Sensei used to chant that regularly, usually in the morning after the morning class. なたの神が言うつだげてどことはにがみすがります。かむらでかむるみのみかとまちて。So there are changes here. And it's a little bit like Osensei, obviously, connected to the delivery to the chanting. And of course, chanting, you hear the sound, but there's subtle changes in breath that occur when you do them. I mean, I still chant, but, like something like that. There's very little interest. I mean, I chant, most people do. So I understand that, people are busy. We're all busy with our human stuff. And Osensei's thing was, of course, the other need was a deeper study of who we are, relationship to the universe, and things like the subtle changes of breath, ki no yoga, the exalted functions of breath. And then those are things that can unlock the potential. And from this standpoint, kind of new things are probably going to get worse than they have. But that at that level, there's a transformative quality where potentially we can change the world back to more the original design and purpose for it. So different than going to class, which is important, and learning the techniques and developing very important friendships and relationships. All of that's vital. And it was Osensei. Okay. The organs of the body begin to generate heat, light, and power. Furthermore, when this heat, light, and power come together, the body begins to move as the mind dictates, not the noisy mind of the original sense of mind, will, intention, vision, imagination. Mind and body become one, and that one functions in tune with the universe. Your whole system will become kind of a being on a mission to explore yourself along with the schematic of the creation as it. You didn't get this overnight. But that unity. And so, the chanting, in a way, touch. Power is oftentimes seen sort of one. I'm a Warrior fan, so 40 feet, nothing but net, game over. Stephen Curry. Imagine sort of the ability he has is a bit like. Or the way Osensei held his sword, his spear. Okay. Now we continue. This yeah. The subtle change in breathing creates equally subtle change in the key in the vacuum. In other words, as you start to fine-tune the breath, it connects. The key out there, what it really means, key in the vacuum means. You try to define it, and you call it in the words. So that generates waves of both great and small magnitude. And through the change in waves, one can recognize how the mind and the body are purified. The universe exists in an immense scale, but also exists in a quantum level. And what they call spooky action at distance is two particles. Immense distance away, traveling at light speed away from each other, can be connected. So in a sense, a particle's wave or vibration, as well as a particle. And so maybe on that level, we can, adjusting our breath. That's my breath. The craziness going on in my head tends to kind of subside. He's so good. Although it tends to make everything Japanese and ritual. And anytime you're in a state of clarity, and the breath is a great vehicle for that. When this happens, when breath gently assimilates itself with the universe and begins to expand. As this breathing takes place, one experiences unification. If the act of breathing can become part of the universe, real but unseen spirits will begin to gather as if to protect you. This is the beginning of Aiki Myo-o, not Myo-yo, Myo-o, which he defines as a response from the heavens. Hikizuchi Sensei used to talk about Jinsu Aiki. Jin, Su, Kami, Jin, Su, Suji, to communicate. It was a communication through personal growth, development, training between you and what we call the Kami. And he's discussing some of that right there with slightly different language. That is my thought. I'm trying to bridge my personal memory experience with. Okay. As one follows the promptings of Aiki Myo-o, the exalted responsive, assisted by the virtue of the Creator, one's breathing begins to rise in a spiral along the line and to descend in a spiral. We're starting to talk about the Kototama. Structure, energy, also the relationship of energy to vibration and breath. Okay? The breath begins to connect water and fire, creating the elements from which the universe is made. And it also creates the conditions for the dynamic friction, which generates heat, light, and power. In this way, the breath becomes a boundless and eternal continuation of Kami Waza. I mean, my definition of Kami, spirit, Waza technique, divine technique. All the Waza techniques in Buddha, the morsel sphere, must align with the truth of the universe. A Buddha without a connection to the universe remains an orphan. It is different with the Buddha of Takimitsu that creates love. Of course, Aikido is the Buddha of Takimitsu. And again, he's really describing Aikido not just as technique or even social interaction, but as something much deeper, more profound. All the Waza in that Buddha of Takimitsu is indeed the Otake, the data cry generated in the universe by the power of Ah is an open sound. E is a combined sound. With the hibiki, the sound tone of the body as a spirit, different levels of the body. On some level, the body's energy. On level of it is vibration. It's just like a tuning fork. A tuning fork can kind of do that. The universe may have a frequency or a code that we can attune to. Is again one. But on a larger scale. And then he talks about the subtle changes. I remember one time, this is just something I was just talking about. Everybody told me the rest of this, Jack, it's not people, it's waves, vibrations. And most of the time we're too busy here, and too heavy here to try all that and tune into it. The hibiki, which is the sound tone of the body, I mean, that's a big word, daiichi no hibiki, the sound thread of the universe. One time I mentioned it to Koji Osensei, and he looked at me and says, Jack, you know, that's a term for self-pity, enlightenment. I was throwing it around because I knew it, Jack. I went, oh, okay. And again, if you just throw words around, the words might have been original. The power, it might have been Gopatama, but by the time my mind makes it something out there, then it's just a word. 100% say those. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. The hibiki of the body is generated by the unification of mind and body. Once it is generated, it is attuned to the hibiki of the universe, of our own personal energy signature, and tune into the energy signature of the universe. Hibiki, hibiki. As these two hibiki interact with each other, the key of Aikido is created. I'm talking about the key no myoyo. So key, good starting place, but there's more. That is, the hibiki of the body echoes or reverberates with the hibiki of the universe. And this path of Yamabiko, the mountain echo, is the supreme truth of Aikido. Wow. Then a high level of heat, light, and power are generated in the soul body, becoming integrated with focus. The invigoration of the subtle echo between the two hibiki of the body and the universe ripens ki no myoyo, subtle, the exalted functions of ki, gives birth to Bu, martial, based on love. The love that is Bu, as a result, creating you see. Okay? And we are so that's one of my major studies. I haven't really done that. The docents and I have been kind of going through some back and forth about a lot of these topics. So I decided to look at that and Yeah, there's a lot here. Some of the changes of breath that you more. I've learned movement. Well, it's also kind of had its rituals. See? Movements sort of a continual process of impartial to some degree, of love constantly giving birth to things. And you'll see the seventh one out there, which is the circle spiral. Seventh one through. Subtle changes. It's not so much like the movement, you know, if you kind of unbond six. And you do the sound, it's vibration. Do the good drama. Sing it. But again, you have to keep the sound from kept going back and forth with the larger sound. Osensei was saying, the kind of unification. So we can use it cheating for better technique, but he's a unified thought. Keep unifying the larger creation. And several things like, for example, whole center of the people light of fear. But anyway, I'm into depth. So I think we'll call this for now. This whole thing must not be forgotten. Aikido has many good things in all of those. But in the background, it was his quest for truth, and to enlighten. Big word, the use of the term. And he found it in himself, and he found that it extended out into the schematic for the actual universe itself. So I've always been fascinated by that. I find these days people are not too terribly interested in it. sad. I think one time the Osensei was talking about Osensei, and he said, yeah, there was a sadness about him. Not that sad for the same reasons. Because, there's also other factors. It's a joy, which is important. But there's kind of a sense sometimes that it's very easy to get lost in trivialities. And when I read that stuff, or begin to move, it takes me back to again, big word, truth. Anyway, I think we will end it for today. So thank you.